can go.
All right. So good morning, everybody. As we were saying earlier, I realize most of you guys worked last night, so really I'll try to keep you awake here. So, my name is Jim. I'm from Jenson, Hughes. I've been doing this for 15 years. My previous life was a paramedic, and I've done a ton of actually, I was deployed when I worked with AMR to do evacuations in nursing homes for the hurricanes and all that good stuff. So I come to you with a little bit of experience, and when you start talking about full building evacuation plans and all that kind of stuff. What NHCA Corporate has asked us to do this year is to really spend a little bit of time on fire. So for you guys that have done this class before we let ourselves on fire, I'm sorry, we're not doing it. But what we're going to do is spend some time on your EOP, your Emergency Operations Plan, and then we will go through fire as well. But so as we go through this, it's really just your EOP is a big binder. It's, everybody's where I've been this week is probably 4 inches thick, right? And it's got all kinds of stuff in there. And really what it is it's a reference guide for your leadership team of what to do. Does anybody know where that EOP is kept? Where is it?
It's on each unit and all the
Excellent. So administrative offices in each unit. So it is a reference. So if something happens and you guys need to know what do I do, you can't pull it out. You can't, and you should take a peek at it. So as we go through, we're going to talk about your code words. We'll go through. There we go. So again, it's some of these procedures, they need to be memorized, right? I mean, if you have a fire, you can't be running to your EOP and pulling it out and say, what do I do? Or an active shooter, or a gas leak, or something like that. So certainly, but you can reference when you start looking and talking about loss of water, loss of electricity. What do I do with those? So it has 8 different sections, and this thing is, again, it's behemoth. It's a big thing, but it is set up and organized pretty well. We're not going to go through each one of these, but we will talk about some of them. And let's see if I stand this way. If it gets it, there we go. So as we go through and talk about some of these, Section A talks about policy, organizational statements. Also in there is your risk assessment. Medicare mandates, and anybody that accepts Medicare money has to have annually what we call an HVA, hazard vulnerability analysis. These HVAs are basically, it helps you identify what are you at risk for here. So I live in Connecticut. What falls up high for weather events are blizzards, ice storms, hurricanes, tornadoes, lower, right? But everything is listed in there and you rank. So an example, there is, a volcano. Well, we're pretty low for having volcanoes here, right? So, but it's there, so you would just put a 0 there. But what do you think for a weather event you would be kind of on the higher side for?
Snowstorm.
Here?
No, not here. Up there.
For you, oh yeah, no doubt. For you guys, what do you think for a weather event? Tornado, right? I mean, I think you're like me, we don't get huge ones, but we get the smaller ones hit neighborhoods, right? But certainly if it hit your building, that could be pretty devastating. So yes.
evacuation for the coastal centers.
So, and you're a receiving facility for those? Absolutely. So there is a section in there on surge, right? And so what do we do? How do we plan that? And you guys are pretty good with that. So no doubt that's a higher risk than some of our buildings up in the Northeast. Communications is always a challenge during a disaster, right? It really, really is. So, and then continuity of ops, and this is right here. I looked at just last week. The #1 citation that your surveyors are giving nursing homes in South Carolina is this right here. Is not updating your plan and not testing and training your staff and doing that full-scale exercise, doing that tabletop exercise through the year. That was the #1. I gotta tell you, your surveyors are pretty nice here. They did not, they call them E-tags for emergency management. There was only about 60 E-tags given last year. Massachusetts, for example, probably a few more nursing homes, but they had they were up in the thousands. So yeah, so it's just, it certainly is a difference. So we talk about plan activation. What happens if a tornado does hit and it hits the side of one side of your building, the roof is ripped off? What are those? What do we do, right? That's all the things and really what happens is is anybody that sees a life safety issue within your building would then go, and the key is going to be notify your supervisor. They then go and they escalate it up through your leadership team, and then they would go and activate this plan. And it happens like this, right? And it really does. Code black is your code word for if you do have to activate this plan. And it would be, code black and whatever it may happen, whatever may be going on. So what would happen then? Your leadership team, they go to the command center. And I'm gonna talk about incident command and all this, don't get hung up on these terms. Where you guys do your morning meeting every day, that's where you're going, I'm sure, right? And then but you wanna get your team together and say, all right, and what they're doing is saying, what happened? How do we mitigate it from getting any worse? And then, what do we need to do to get back to normal operations, right? And it starts with life safety. People, is anybody hurt? So what do we need to do to the building? That's how all that starts. Then what would happen is, so you're in the code words, code black, code red, right? But then we use, the big thing here is just plain language, and there's a couple of them that are extremely important. If you have an active shooter or somebody in the building with a gun or something, you don't want to go and be yelling out a code word. People have got, years ago they started doing that, code silver, code, but every building was different. So plain language, because we need people to react. So if the overhead pay should be, there's a person with a weapon on unit 2 heading to unit 3. And if you're on unit 3, what are you doing?
Shut the doors.
Run, hide, fight, right? I mean, that's kind of what we do, or run, hide, or deny. And exactly, get residents into rooms. But here's a thing for you, your resident rooms, do the doors lock? So how do we go and barricade a door quickly? You can take a bed, move a bed, push it up
Furniture in the
against the
room.
door, lock it down. And that's hard to move. Furniture, yeah, but that could be hard to move as well. But a bed, you just unlock it, rolls right easy, lock it, and you're good. Bathroom doors lock? Yeah, we had yesterday too. They did yesterday, and but it was easy to, I'm like, how many have you had residents lock themselves in there? And they're like, oh yeah, but there's, any key will work. I'm like, okay. So whatever works for you, but those are the things that you gotta kind of think. So avoid, deny, defend, right? Knowing where doors lock is helpful. One other thing, I'll talk about that now. There's one other thing to think about. If you call 911, you hear gunshots, you're calling 911. You call 911 and they're gonna say, 911, where's your emergency?
What is it? 3501?
I don't know, you tell me, sir. Right? So you give the address, that's it. But they're gonna ask a whole lot of questions from you. And as you do that, just expect that. And it may be, I don't know, they're gonna ask, is the shooter male, female, skin color, what are they wearing? Long gun, handgun. It may be, you may say, I don't know, I'm hiding in the bathroom. Okay, fine, I'm gonna hang up, because everybody else is calling, right? One thing to know, this just happened to me, and I'm sure you have the technology too. When you dial 911, look at your phone. I had a car heading on the highway in the wrong direction 2 months ago. I had my phone on the mount, dial 911, 911, where's your emergency? And it popped right up on my screen. Inform the dispatcher you are on Route 2 northbound at exit 2. It's like, no way. Then I turned on to 84, and it shows now I'm on 84 westbound at where it was. I had no idea it did that. I knew from being in the business a long time that we could triangulate and see people. I mean, I've seen in our dispatch center, somebody's walking down the street and you can see they're on Pratt Street, right? But this is great because, especially for me who travel all the time, I have no idea where I'm at, right? And even if you guys, you travel somewhere, you don't know where you're at, absolutely use that. It really works. It's a great feature. Communications, always difficult. Do you guys have portable radios here for staff, for leadership, or do you guys use them or not? Getting this? Okay, so you guys do. That's one way of communicating, obviously. Cell phones, and just a note with cell phones, if you have a widespread power outage and we start losing cell towers after that 24-hour mark, you are not going to be able to make a phone call. But what will work well is texting. It's smaller data packets. Set your families up in a group text. Set your leadership team up here in a group text, and you'll communicate. You get down south in these hurricanes, they go 2 weeks without power, and then they start getting mad. In the Northeast, it's about 24 hours. They want to fire the power companies and everything. They have no patience. But that, I'll tell you, I've been deployed there, and it's been 10 days where we're just communicating by texting. So, building lockdown. So when we get now into managing staff and security, how many of you guys go home with your name tags? Good, you should. And here's why. If they ever had to lock down this building for something and you're getting called back into work and you pull in and you say, dude, I'm like, yeah, I'm working here, I'm pulling in. The first thing they're gonna say to you is, can I see your ID? So it's something to think about. You may have off-site parking because of something going on. They're parking you somewhere in a church parking lot somewhere, and then they're going to shuttle you guys back and forth. So it's things that can just know that, and that's mentioned in your DOP. Managing other things, staff, family, pet sheltering. In the Northeast, when we get these big blizzards coming, they will go and bring staff in the night before because you're just going to be locked down for 3 days. So they'll set areas up. The hospitals do this as well, and they really run into issues with people are saying, hey, I'm not coming in, I got a dog. So what they're doing is setting up areas for dogs, cats, common domestic animals. You're not bringing your snakes, you're not bringing all that kind of stuff, or your rabbits, but they will allow, they're doing that, and it's because they realize in order to get the team in, they need to do that. So we're seeing more of that. Emotional and psychological support, I gotta tell you, when I was in EMS and first started, it was never recognized, and we lost a lot of people from that. It really would be, now people are trained to recognize, and if there are people experience a bad call, people reach out to them and make sure we can get the help, and that's in there as well. I think since all these shootings started so many years ago, and people responding to that, and staff and first responders, and one thing to remember is that you guys have a relationship with your residents. You know families. When I was working in EMS, I saw a patient for an hour, right? You guys develop that relationship. And if something happens and bad, it's traumatic with you guys. I mean, how would it not be? So this is where, we want to have that, we mentioned that in there, just so you guys can deal with that. Also, you're going to absolutely need to deal with the media. Don't think that they're not going to be camped out front in your doorway. And I got to tell you, we've had clients, we've had good experience because they were up front, up close, agreeing to come back at 10 o'clock or noon time before they go on the news at noon. We'll give you another statement at 11:30. All of that, just working with them. If you say nothing, what's going to happen is they're going to find a family member. What do you mean? You camera in their face, and do you have a loved one? Yeah, my mother's here. How are they doing? Well, I don't know. Nobody's told me anything. And you could be doing a great job within that building, but now what's it look like out there that you're not doing anything, right? So you just got to make sure you're dealing with that. No doubt, having a part of this also is having the resources. You have to be sustainable for 72 hours. So food, perishables, medical supplies, all of that falls into play. And this is something more and more that your surveyors are looking for. They want to make sure that you have this. And the reason being is we've had a lot of cases where people didn't have those supplies and they had bad outcomes. So that's what they're looking for there. As far as your role in an emergency, leadership, they are going to report to your command center right away, start looking at within their EOP for some guidance. And then staff, you guys return back to your normal work area. And what's going to happen is that the leadership team will get information down to you guys and may need information from you. One of the things that we have is a Department Rapid Assessment Form that I'll talk about in just a second. This incident command system, I just want you guys to have a basic understanding. I mean, I can talk about this for 2 hours, and I know you guys want to go to that. So I won't do that to you. But just a basic understanding of the incident command system. It is used by your first responders, government, large responses. And it's a way to manage the incident. So I'll give you an example. Fire department pulls up here for a dumpster fire. One engine pulls up, and what they do is they come on scene and say, engine 5 on scene. Whoever's in the passenger seat is in charge. And the fire department, so you're aware, is always in charge. I don't care if they came here for a shooting. If the fire department's here, they're in charge, and they'll very quickly say, okay, Mr. Policeman, you manage this, you do it. But they are in charge, and trust me when I tell you, they'll be the first ones to tell you that they are in charge, All right, so just know that. So if they come up here, they pull up, engine 5 in command, dumpster fire. What if we had a building explosion? That same engine pulls up, they're the first ones here, that person's in charge in the passenger seat. Then the district chief shows up, they take command. Then the fire chief shows up, well then they would take command. And then as these people show up and start taking command, then they fill some of these other positions. When we circle back and bring this into healthcare, it's the incident commander. Well, who's in charge of the building right now? Who's in charge of your building right now? Is your administrator? Right? All right, so he's the incident commander. Typically in healthcare, we'll come over here to operations. That's typically is the director of nursing, because he or she has the ultimate responsibility of the well-being of all the residents. When we get into finance, that's going to be your business office, right? They got to start tracking the expenses. What expenses are we incurring with this? Tracking payroll, tracking the hours people are coming in. Because eventually this is going to be an insurance claim, right? Did we have any issues with your computers on Friday? Right? Our company, we're worldwide. Everybody was throwing pencils at the ceiling because they had nothing to do because nobody's computer would turn on. So we're tracking that and travel delays of our people. We have a separate cost code number because that's going to be most likely, we're not going to get reimbursed, but it's at least going to be a taxable tax write-off for the millions of dollars it cost us. So that is what that finance person would do. Planning, usually assistant director of nursing or somebody else can fall in that role if you don't have that person. That is somebody that's just thinking ahead. What's going on in 8 hours? What's going on in 2 weeks, 2 days, right? So that's how with that. Logistics, usually maintenance. Logistics is stuff. If you need a bed moved from unit 2 to unit 3, who's doing that for you? Right? Exactly. So plus these guys have more stuff hidden that you don't even know about. So if you need something, these are the guys you want to get it, and they're working for you, and they're doing the logistics. So, and just a little background, this started 25 plus years ago, the incident command system. Started with the Coast Guard, then they started with the wildfires and they were using it. And really, at night, when 9/11 happened, that was really where all your first responders, it came across the fire services that this is how we're gonna operate across the United States so we can respond to large events. Because when you had New York City, you had all kinds of people coming in, no span of control, it was in all the different spots. So this is why today we use this, every first responder uses it, your town government, city, county government, state government, it's how it's used. So we just want you to have a little bit of an overview of it. Establishing it early to help manage the event is key. Looking at positions, who's going to do what. In this big old binder, we've got job action sheets because the administrator or DON is not doing this every day. They're going to be like, well, what do I got to do? So we have job action sheets, which are nothing more than like check boxes. These are the things you need to do. Other tools that are there. Why my clicker doesn't want to work here? There we go. All right. So again, those job action sheets. This is one that you may see. This is in there. If you have an incident going on in your building, you could have a tornado. I mean, the way we get them right, it could hit that side of the building, rip the roof off, and this side's okay. What this does is go to each nursing unit, each department to do a rapid assessment. What's going on? Do you have water? Do you have electricity? What's happening in your unit? This comes back to the command center, and they can get a quick reference of what's going on. Where's my staff? Anybody injured? Anything? What's happening? So this is there, and it is a good tool. Section D is your full building evacuation plan. So this is what your coastal communities do well. They're coming up to you guys. So with these guys, this is a exception to have to evacuate. There's 3 different types of evacuation you can see. One is pre-event, so that's that hurricanes, and they're coming up to you guys. The urgent or non-urgent is when the event's happening. And then the last one is the post-event. So here's most common, right? Hurricane, where they're coming up. I mean, just know 100 healthcare facilities evacuated in 2019 for that hurricane in Florida. That is a lot of buildings and a lot of residents. So the other one, I was just at this hospital 3 weeks ago. This is in St. Helena, just north of Napa. Beautiful hospital, up on a mountain. It's gorgeous. I would never live there though. And this is these wildfires they have. I was driving up, sun's just coming up, beautiful morning. All these trees that are still there, all some down, blackened, others that were still standing, all singed. These guys are taking an ICU critical care patient and bringing them around over to pack you. They literally thought this building was going to burn. And it was, and just look at them, where you see all those flames, that's where their cars were parked. And it's all the woods coming there. But look at them, right? Terrifying. And they had to literally take this patient, move them around. They lost power in the building, in that section of the building, and that's why they were moving over to pack you. And then trying to evacuate and get people out. This guy just had open heart surgery, right? So thinking of moving that level of acuity. So yeah, it was a beautiful place, but yeah, couldn't pay me enough to live there. This is in Texas. This happened in a few years, 3 years ago now. It was a flood inside of an assisted living. They're screaming for help all morning. Nobody's coming. They videotaped this and sent it to CNN and said, could you get us some help? And of course, it goes blaring across the network, right? Everybody's seeing this, and yeah, they got help after that. But this is residents floating in water. I mean, doing the evacuations. This is another nursing home, right? So there's a method to this evacuation process. We need to figure out where these residents going, how they're getting there, what's going with them, how are we going to deal with medical records, and how are we going to deal with medication, specifically narcotics. You can't just give a bus driver, a wheelchair driver, a bunch of meds and have narcotics in there and say, hey, give this to the nurse when you get up there. There's got to be that accountability process, and that's everything that needs to take place during that. We'll set up holding areas. Holding areas is nothing more than taking your residents from your wings and bringing them up toward the front and hold them there, so that way when EMS or your buses get there, they just drive up front, grab them and go. This location's fluid where it may be. It may be a big dining room. You may decide to put them in a dining room and on a unit, and then have and then use the door near them for your transportation flows. Labor pool. That is something. That's an important one to set up, especially as you're calling in staff, and they're showing up, and you work on Unit 2. You go there, and Unit 2 is empty, right? Where is everybody? You want to set up this labor pool so everybody that's coming into the building, being called back, goes to one place. They sign in because you may have your time system down if you have power issues or internet issues. And then you're deployed to where you're needed. And that is how that system works. And that, again, is fluid, it changes, and that's determined at the time of evacuation. The other thing, most important thing is when your residents leave this building, they have to have name bands on, or something way of identification. We don't do a great job overall. It's gotten better, but I can tell you it was Superstorm Sandy in New York, that they had 1,400 residents from either hospitals or nursing homes. 6-7 days post this event, they're missing 400 nursing home residents. They don't know where they went, and it was terrible. I mean, because they were moving, going to other buildings, and nobody was tracking them, nobody was coordinating, nobody's talking to families. So family members are calling all these nursing homes, and with phone lines down, people aren't even answering phones trying to find their loved ones. So we definitely need to go and track your residents. Your residents now, they don't have name bands on, do they? Do you have name bands in your disaster card? Anybody know? No? Yeah, actually, do you guys have a disaster card? Or a box or something where you have disaster supplies? All right, so yeah, let's talk about that after. That's name bands with Sharpie markers, that kind of stuff should something definitely be in there. And then, we certainly tracking them when they leave is just key. And making sure they get there. And the medical records piece, if they're going to, like when your other buildings from NHC come up, it's pretty easy, right? Because they're all using Matrix there too. They can log in, you can get your information, and you're good. But think about if you got residents coming in here from another building that did not use your medical record. Go back to Friday. How much are you guys scanning now to put all that stuff into their chart? Somebody's got to be doing that. I mean, I know yesterday the poor girl was doing it, and it was 19 hours of a lot of paper that's got to get scanned into their chart. So It can be a challenge. The other thing that's in here in section E, this is like the meat and potatoes of this whole thing, and really, it really talks about all the different disasters in there, and it's giving you guys just guidance. Now, building lockdown, again, having that, it talks about that. Earthquakes. They don't have many earthquakes around us, right? But if you go to the West Coast, boy, they live that. We had one in Jersey this year, and I felt it all the way in Connecticut. It was a little jolt and a bang. And we were all like, what the heck was that? The blinds were shaking in the office, but they had some significant damage then. Fire we'll get to in just a second, and then contamination of outside air. That became a thing last year. Did you guys get the smoke from the fires up in Canada? In New York, where my son lived, he sent me a picture that one day was awful. You couldn't see a block away. And then what they were doing in all the buildings was shutting down the air handlers because smoke were coming into the buildings. So it was voila, right? And that's what they were dealing with. Missing resident, code red, you determined that? Yellow, okay. That's what I got. I couldn't remember which one it was. And so the other piece is what are we doing for the gas leaks, the tornadoes? So let me ask you a question. We get a tornado warning. If you got a tornado on the ground, it's heading to you. What are we doing in your building with your residents? Pulling them away from windows, center hallways, try to wrap them up if you can, and get them in the wheelchairs, whatever, chairs, and cover them up if you can. I was out west one time, we had a building there, and all of a sudden they're like, ooh, there's a tornado like 3 miles away. And let me tell you, these people were like, boom. They pulled everybody out, shut blinds, shut doors in the room, and put everybody in the hallway, no messing around. They just live that, and that's what they do. What about if you're at home? How many of you guys, do you guys have basements? Anybody? No. So what are you doing in your house if there's a tornado coming? You hear the train. They always say that. If you hear the train, you know it's coming. Where are you going in your house? Bathroom. Good spot. You have walls around you. It's small. Get in the tub, and it's a good spot. I have a basement. There's been a few times in the last 10 years where I've run to the basement. I haven't heard the train, but they're like this thing, and it was like a quarter mile from me. So and they're smaller, but still, it has a pretty big impact. As far as, then you would look at our other, right, earthquakes, tornadoes, ice storms, all that's in there. Ice storms, you guys, do you have that? Right, you can get that. You get an ice storm with 4 or 5 days of no power. That's a pretty big deal. And again, it's staffing, how are we getting staffing to the building? How are we maintaining that? And then, so all of that stuff comes into play. All of this in the technology pieces here, loss of natural gas, right, sewage. Is it a bad day if you lose your sewage or you lose water and you can't flush your toilets here? What's our census today? Anybody know?
60.
I'm sorry?
160.
160, right, and plus you probably got another good amount of staff here. Think about not flushing the toilet. That's a bad day. Yeah, absolutely. So those are the key things to be thinking about. And again, you go to that reference, what should I be doing? And things to be looking at, things to be we should be doing are all there. Human related, all of this, we talked about surge of residents, right? So that's certainly, family staff. I'll tell you what, this family surge, you lose power in your community for 3, 4, 5 days, and in days like today with this humidity, what do you think the family members want to come? Here, because what do you got? Electricity. It's cool. We've had some of these big storms in Connecticut, and it seems like all our hospitals are on hills. We had a town 100% without power. The only thing they could see is UConn Medical Center. They went through food so quickly because people were driving there to get food. So, all right. The other pieces here, as we wind down on the EOP, is really just having phone lists of your vendors. Who are all your vendors, having them listed. Also here it's talking about storage locations, right, resources. Again, all your phone lists for all these folks here is just critical, and it should be in your EOP and updated annually. Storage locations for your stuff, again, listed out in your disaster cards, having your flashlights, having your extension cords there, those kind of things, and knowing what's in that disaster card. And I can help you with that with some stuff. Just so you guys are aware, your generators, they are tested weekly, monthly, everything's documented, and it's all there for, and why? Because we've had bad outcomes, and that's why they're tested as much as they are. Again, just vendors listed. All right. Questions on your EOP? Again, just the whole big thing, the real main thing and the biggest takeaway is, yes, it's a big binder, but there's a lot of things in there and tools in there. We're gonna be doing when I meet with your leadership team today, is a tabletop exercise with them, and we're gonna go through a scenario, and I can tell you yesterday, when I finally like pull this thing out of your EOP, they were like, wow, this is pretty nice, because it's a lot of questions we didn't think about, and that's what that's for. So that is why corporate NAC wanted us to spend a little time with you guys to start thinking and updating that binder and go put in somebody, somebody needs to have ownership of that and do those updates. All right, let's talk about fire. So we have a fire in your building. I don't have a door nearby, but no, we can use that door. If that was a resident room door, do I want to just open that door up? How do we want to open it? You got it. Feel back of your hand. Make sure you're feeling the door, but more importantly, the door jamb and the door knob is that's metal, and that could be hot and the door not. Okay? So get down low, crack open the door. Your only objective here, guys, is to get in there, make a rescue, pull that resident out of there, shut the door behind you. Once you do that, stop and take a big breath, because the reality is what? Is anybody dying? No, we got them out of here. Is that fire contained, not going anywhere? Not smoke not going out into your hallways? Yeah, because you shut the door, right? So that's the key. What if you can't, let me ask you this, do you guys have bariatric residents here? Do the doors, I'm sorry?
A few.
Do those beds fit out the doors?
Real tight.
Yeah.
But you have to take the handrails.
Exactly. Most of it, now, what's that time to take that off during the fire, right? You can't, it's not gonna happen. So this technique is what we call a sheet slide. If there's two people, one person's just on the legs and moving the legs. So that's why I'm just showing you this one. Top sheet to the floor. Bottom sheet, the fitted sheet, gets popped off, you wrapped around the resident and you slide him to the edge of the bed. And then legs go to the ground, and you're gonna put here, you'll see his left knee right up near the resident's hip, and they just slide off his knee. So legs to the ground, and then they just slide. Now, some of you are looking at that going, yeah, but we got some pretty big residents here, right? I get it, but the reality is, if you take somebody that's 120 pounds soaking wet, you're pulling them out of that bed. You get somebody that's 500 pounds, they come out pretty quick, because it's all, once the legs come, the rest of them follow. So it is a way, this is a technique. Challenges you're gonna have are what? Your residents are attached to stuff, oxygen, Foley's, IV, whatever it may be. So you're gonna need to disconnect some or take it with you. If the Foley bag can go right up on them. Do me a favor, if they're on oxygen, they're on a nasal cannula, pull it off your concentrator or your tank, but leave the nasal cannula in the nose, because wherever you move with them, you're gonna need that, you're gonna need to, you're gonna go there and go, oh, look, they're on oxygen. We gotta get them on oxygen. So those are just all the different, that's a good thing to do. And I think really, like the Foley bags can go on, IVs, that can go too. We've had clients that have taken the whole IV poles, this was in a hospital, got them to the ground and just took everything and laid it on the sheet and took everything, right? I mean, especially when you just gotta get out of that room quick. So, as we talk about race, all right, you guys have a door marking system here. I saw the magnets that are up there. Really important to use. Obviously, fire room, obviously if the room's been evacuated. Where are we gonna put these is on the door jamb. I would recommend handle level, because that's where people are gonna look for it, the handle, right? Don't be putting it high up, low, just, these are really important. Where are these all kept?
Inside of the door jamb.
Inside of the door jamb. Okay, perfect. Yeah, we're gonna change that in your fire procedures, because it still says they're in the cabinets. So I'll change that.
There are some in the
Oh,
cabinets.
okay, good.
We got some in the fire cabinets. We also got, made sure that we have one on every door jamb.
Perfect, excellent. I tell you, if you see this tag on the door, the next people to open this door is the fire department, okay? Don't do it. And the reason why this is so important, we have, you can get temperatures in that room, 800-900 degrees. You open up a door and get hit in the face with 800-900 degree heat, you're done. Your eyes instantly dry out and you're in excruciating pain. You get hit with that heat. You ever have a car pull out in front of you, you jam on the brakes and you go, Well, guess what? You just now in here, it's the same body reaction when you get hit with that heat. What happens is your upper airway swells right up, and that's how people die. In 30 years of being a medic in my career, I've criked 6 people, which means I've had to cut their throat and put a tube in there. 4 out of those 6 were pulling people out of house fire, or fires, not necessarily a house fire. But it's the heat. If it's not the smoke that gets you, it's the heat. And those are usually flash fires, is what we'll see. So very important, please use these. Please make sure they're on the rooms, it is really important. All right, Unit 2 hall nurse is going to be placing a backup call when that alarm goes. So the alarm goes off, Unit 2 hall nurse goes there, sees where it is, and does an overhead page. That's what's in your procedures. Is that accurate? Okay. They do the page, let everybody know. Where else? If you hear the alarm going, you're at the nurse's station. You guys, there's an annunciator panel there. You can also go see where that fire is. It's going to show up where the alarm is. Okay. It will in the units. It would say what. Well, there's 2 units anyway. That unit 3 for sure, and I believe there's one other unit that it won't say what room it is. It just says what zone it is. But the other units, it will say room 2, room 101 or where it is. So those are very good, and that's great when you can do that. Where are you going to find all your pull stations? These guys, where are we going to find them? Exits. Always, always, always buy an exit. I don't care if you're grocery shopping, out to dinner tonight, you are gonna go, when you walk out the door, that's where you'll find them, and that's where you'll find them in this building, because that's just code, all right? Also, that Unit 2 needs to designate somebody to go and meet the fire department, so we get them in the right door. We wanna bring them, if the fire is in Unit 3, we wanna get them over to that door toward Unit 3, as close as we can to the fire. Who's gonna respond? Well, all these folks during the day. Who shows up at night? These guys are all home sleeping. So when we develop your procedures and do this, what we talk about and what's in your procedures is 1 CNA from Group 1 on each unit reports to the fire location. I will talk to your leadership team, and I got to verify it. I would like to add to that list, and because your dietary folks, what time do they start their day? Probably 5:30, 6 o'clock. There's not a lot of staff in your building at 5:30 in the morning. So let's get them to come and help as well. It's just one more person, one more to close doors, move residents, that kind of stuff. So, sprinklers. Your building is 100% sprinkled, right? That's the great news. You want to know what the bad news is? Your building is 100% sprinkled. Here's why. You don't have them in here because this is a business occupancy, but when you get in your building and all those sprinklers are there, each one needs to hit 155 degrees. As it does, it discharges water out in an 8-foot pattern at 20 gallons a minute of the nastiest, stinky, moldy, disgusting water you can imagine coming at you. It's gross. Now, sprinkler head activates. How long before the fire department is standing in front of that resident room to say, okay, the fire's out, we can shut the sprinkler down?
10 minutes.
At least. They're probably here in that 10 minutes, but now they got to get to the room. So in 10 minutes, that's 200 gallons of water on the floor. Well, let's say realistically, it's probably close to 15 minutes, and that's 300 gallons of water. So now they say, okay, fire's out, go shut down the sprinklers. Where are the sprinkler shutoffs? That's important for people to know. I asked Jim this morning, and it was the service hall is where that is. At least for that one, we'll verify the other. But yeah, that's a pretty big deal, because now everybody's running around trying to figure this out. Do the math. It takes 10 more minutes, 15 more minutes to do that. Then when they shut it down, it slows down the sprinkler, but it doesn't stop. So then you gotta drain the system to get it to stop. So I gotta tell you, most buildings where there's fires, they are not evacuating because of the fire, they're evacuating because of the water. It's especially when you have multi-story buildings. I've seen water go from the 8th floor, 10th floor, all the way to the basement. There's nowhere for this water to go. So listen, do me a huge favor. If you are in a room rescuing a resident, don't let that door close behind you. And the reason why is if you look, smoke behaves like this. It goes up, hits the ceiling, banks across, hits your walls, and starts to drop down. As it does that, you can see that up on the top, that smoke, right? Well, what happens when that sprinkler activates? Where's all that smoke and toxic smoke and heat gonna go? Down. If this door is closed, which you'll see in 1 second, it's open. But look what happened. Do you want to be in that room now? No way. If that door was closed, you would really be in trouble. You want it open, and we hate to do it because all that smoke's going out into your corridor. But the reality is, you would be dead if that door is closed because of that smoke. So just make sure that door is open. And I don't care if you got to grab, you get the resident, you get them on the ground. If you got to drag them by their feet, get them the heck out of there because you guys got to get out because this stuff will really get you into trouble. Okay? All right. The other piece here. With bricks. So we've done our rescue, we've got our alarm. Now we're talking C, that is closed doors, closed windows. Clear up, get your residents out of the room first, then go and clear out your corridor. We did a fire drill a couple days ago. These guys rocked it. Everybody got in there. They were taking 4 and 5 residents and putting them into a room. Why is that so important? Because all your resident room doors are smoke fire rated doors. It's your safe haven. We had an assisted living. It was a middle of the night fire. There's a cop and there's a staff member banging on doors to get people out. Well, what happened was there was a mechanical room down the far end of the hallway. That's where the fire was. There was an explosion in there, blew the door right off, and all this black smoke started pouring out of it. That cop literally grabbed that employee, resident opened the door, pushed all of them, and they all got in that room and shut the door. Because that's a smoke-rated door. That's a safe haven for you. And also your doors that close in your hallway, we'll talk about them as well because that's a smoke-rated door. And then we get into the E part of race, where sometimes this gets a little tricky. Who are you going to evacuate? The only thing we know, we want to evacuate the fire room. Then we want to do the rooms on either side and across the hall. So your criteria for that is, I still have a fire and my hallway is clear. If your hallway's full of smoke, leave everybody in their rooms. Okay, they're safe there. So again, we're not going to evacuate anybody out of here, or if our fire is out. So with fire going, hallway clear, that's where we're moving them. You're not going to move anybody in something like this, right? So just stay in the rooms, everybody stay in there, and you'll be safe. As you move those people, we grab our yellow tag and we pop it on the door. So when fire responds and gets there, they're like, here's our fire room, and it's evacuated. Rooms on either side and across are also evacuated. So the last thing is, I'm standing in your hallway. We've got everybody there. Where are you gonna go with these residents you just evacuated out of these rooms?
Next fire door.
Next fire door. So let's talk about that. When your fire alarm goes, and that is why it's so important we get that alarm pulled quickly so your building starts to work for you. Doors closed. That becomes part of a wall. It goes outside wall to outside wall from the floor and ties right into the roof above us. If we had a wall here, we can have a raging fire on that side, and you can stand on this side and be perfectly safe. Because that's the way your building's designed. It allows you to go horizontal. And that's what we want. It's pouring out there right now. Do we want to bring all your residents outside? No. Do you have residents that you would say, oh, it's a nice day to go for a walk and take off on you? Absolutely. Do you have a memory care unit here? No? They had one yesterday. And the thing you got to remember, and the staff members didn't realize this, when your fire alarm goes off, what happens to all your exterior doors? Unlock. You got to keep a set of eyes on those doors. And I would highly recommend, and we'll talk about with your leadership team, of doing a head count. Because we've had people where they've gone and they've done that head count after a fire drill and realized they were missing somebody. So it's in the real world, let me tell you, it's unreal with the amount of chaos and stuff going on. All right, let's talk fire extinguishers. You guys have wet chemical here, that's used in dietary. You've got a dry chem, the red ones are all at your nurses' stations. Do you guys use the water ones in the corridors? Seems like everybody else does this week. A few of them in there. All right, so this fire extinguisher that we have here, this is what we call an AEC. To use this thing, it's very simple. We use the acronym PASS. All right, just a side note here, this dry chem, you can use it on everything but your stovetop. That's why they have the wet chem. So to use this, we use the acronym PASS. What you're doing is grabbing hold of this, grabbing this pin, snapping it forward and pulling the pin out. When you snap it forward, you're just breaking this little tab off. Aim at your fire, squeeze the handle and sweep back and forth. Has anybody ever seen one of these go off? Huge mess, huge mess. How long do you think this is gonna last you? Less than a minute. This one, about 15 seconds. That's it. You're not gonna save the day with these extinguishers. So what I need you to do is it needs to be a small, contained fire. What is that? Trash can, back of a monitor, your TV, copy or something like that, right? If a bed's going, curtains going, any of that, you're just not gonna have enough product. And the other thing is, and if you guys have never seen one of these go, just blow by this because you're gonna see it in a second. So we go through our acronym. What I want you to pay attention to in this video is the amount of product that comes out of that extinguisher, and envision that in a resident room. And it's extreme irritant. So he goes through his whole thing here. And then that is a lot of product and a lot of smoke inside a resident room. How many of your residents are respiratory compromised in some fashion? Almost all? You discharge this in that room, they're going to be in trouble. So here's what I need you to do. Small contained fires. Fire alarm is going in case this thing takes off on you. And I don't care how big the fire is or was, you should be pulling your alarm. And get that resident out of the room. Then you can use this. You don't need, I saw it this week when on one of the fire drills, the person grabbed an extinguisher from one unit and ran all the way up to unit 6 where we were with a big fire extinguisher and went, oh my God, all exhausted. You don't need to do that. These things are every 75 feet from no matter where you stand because that's code. So they're nearby. If you need to find it, you should, I'm sure you have and you should, everybody does, is you got a sign for it with an arrow that says where your extinguishers are. Okay? So we don't see this too often. This is your patient or your resident who's in bed. You guys have gloves smoking here? No. Most buildings don't anymore. We really don't see this anymore. This one we see a little bit more, which is going across the shoulders. Take the sheet, go across the shoulders, it protects the airway, tuck on each side, and you can see as it tightens it, it just takes and suffocates that fire out. You remember stop, drop, and roll as kids? We all learned that? Well, this is essentially the same thing, except you're not taking your resident and taking them out of the wheelchair, throwing them to the ground and rolling them around. It's the same thing we do. If this does work, we see this a little bit more. We used to do this all the time. You guys would put us out. Because we're doing the EOP, we're not doing that. But the reality is we just don't see this too often anymore because everybody's a smoke-free campus. All right, questions for me. 10 minutes early for you guys that have to go home and go to bed in the rain. You're gonna have a good sleep when you get home. Do me a favor. Can you guys just hit this QR code for me? It's a quick survey just to kind of let us know how we did, but in some things that if you want to see in your next programs, it takes about a minute and a half to fill out. All right, thank you guys. Have a good day.